Awesome.
Thanks, Vince.
So Larry, thanks for coming and doing this. This is our first episode of Influence and Inspiration.
Okay. Well, this studio is inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah. So basically, I guess to start off, what influenced you to start playing guitar?
I'm not 100% sure. I know my mom said that when I was about 2, that I used to strum the broom whenever Elvis would come on the radio. My mom listened to all kinds of music, stuff like that. And later on, I guess I got a toy guitar, and I kept wanting to do more and more and more. And then there was a kid on the block in Brooklyn, where I grew up, first part of my childhood, Mark Brown, and he played guitar, and he showed me how to play one song, I think, or 2 songs, and then I got to see his band play at Street Festival, and I was kind of hooked.
That's
at that
it.
point. I just kept playing guitar, and I grew up not the healthiest kid, so I spent a lot of time indoors when everybody was outside playing.
Okay.
So I got to play a little bit more.
Ah, cool. Do you happen to remember what those 1 or 2 songs were?
I think one was "Love to Love You Baby" by Donna Summer.
Wow.
And I can't remember if that was the second one or the first one, and I don't remember what the first one.
Okay.
But I remember learning that, and I can't replay it now. I can't remember what the song goes like that.
Just guitar in general, you've been through different types. So when did you find like what you liked? Like, you know, like the instrument that, you know, they have 24 frets, we have 22 frets, 21 frets, you know, like what started getting your attention?
That's an interesting question. You know, I started out not having the best guitar players, not having the best guitars.
Okay.
And then I actually won a couple of New York City Limelight guitar solo contests sponsored by Sam Ash and the Limelight nightclub. In order to get, I only entered them to get some real guitars.
Oh, wow.
And the first one I got was, I had gotten the Ibanez Les Paul copy, which was really good. I still had that guitar. I won a Steve Stevens Hamer guitar, Steve Stevens model Hamer guitar, which is interesting because Steve Stevens is from the neighborhood I grew up in. I spent the later part of my childhood, high school, junior high school, Far Rockaway, Queens.
Okay.
And he was the local guitar hero. So, and Hamer had put out a model of his guitar, and I won that. And then the second guitar one was a Kramer, I don't remember which model number, but they both had 24 frets. And then later on I got an Ibanez endorsement, and I started working with Ibanez, and they went from 22 frets to 24 frets. And at some point a few years ago, I started getting back into vintage instruments, or getting into vintage instruments. And I noticed that I really like I use solo a lot on the front pickup.
Okay.
And I really like where it is on a 22 fret guitar. When you have a 24 fret guitar, what it does is move the pickup back a little bit. Over the years, I've learned from different builders, the guys at the Ibanez Custom Shop. Jim Donahue used to build some guitars for me. He educated me on a lot of things. Steve Blucher from DiMaggio Pickups. Through the line, they've actually, people who work on the guitars and build guitars, had actually more influence on me than some of my idols that I could talk to all the time. Later on, I started talking with Andy Timmons about, he's an Ibanez artist as well, and so I noticed that Andy was the only one for a while at Ibanez that's playing a 22 fret guitar. I think now they have some 22 fret guitars.
Okay.
But the ones that I have that were made in the custom shop are 22 frets as well, and that was primarily for the pickup situation. Yeah. And then I started getting into woods. I've known for about maybe 15 years that I like alder and maple. I still love maple caps. I love to look at the maple tops.
Okay.
But I also like what it does to the sound. So I have some that are ash and maple, which is kind of a bright thing, but I like it. Alder and maple, mahogany and maple, which is Les Paul. It's kind of classic.
Yep.
This is a guitar made for me by Joe Nags, who's a master builder, and this is a thick piece of maple.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
It really is.
And it's alder on the back. It's a big chunk of alder, so it's a pretty thick guitar. and it's a little bigger than I think it feels a little bit bigger than a normal Strat.
Okay.
Body wise, which is okay for me. But I got into rosewood fingerboards. I think years ago I did like ebony fingerboards, and I'm not sure why I ever stopped. Certain things weren't critical to me. I could, I was happy to just be playing on a guitar, that worked, that stayed in tune and stuff. And over the years, you get a little bit more refined about what you like and stuff. So in pickups, I've gone through loud, heavy voltage pickups. I used to use an X2N for a while.
Wow, yeah.
Then I switched to PAF Pros, and that was like eye-opening for me. Not that there's anything wrong with X2Ns or loud pickups. It's just my style was changing, and so my taste was changing and my ear was changing. So I got into those. I used to do the hum, sing, hum.
Right.
And then I got into, I had a few guitars where just single humbucker. And this is, these are stacked, these are DiMaggio pickups, and they make great pickups. This is a Area 67, so it's a stacked single coil, so it doesn't hum.
Great.
And this is a side-by-side kind of mini humbucker, I guess.
Hot Rails?
Like the Hot Rails. This is a Satch Track.
Oh, it is,
yeah, it's a Satch Track pickup. It's interesting because I have a few guitars with different kind of pickups in them, and I love different sounds, and I wanted to try a pure single coil in here, and I did. I actually, I had met Jason Lawler, and they gave me a pickup to try, and I used it for a part of the Traveler record, and it's a great sounding pickup. Not to take anything away from these, it's just a different thing. I'm pretty sure if I tried a DiMaggio true single coil, it'd have the same effect on it for me. But in the middle of making that record, I went out to 2 jams, and I took this guitar, and one was in Florida at one of the noisiest clubs as far as noise, RF frequency. And as soon as I got there, I had that hum, and they said, "Oh yeah, this club's notorious about that." I was like, "Oh great!" So I had this hum the whole time. And then I went to a club in Columbus, Georgia, a blues jam, and I never noticed that it had a hum problem because I always had humbuckers of some sort, and or a single coil, true single coil in the middle, and so it was almost never on by itself. And as soon as I got on stage, I was like, "Oh, what's that? Oh, that hum is me." Oh, no. So I love that pickup, that Lawler pickup. But I ended up right after finishing the record having this pickup put back in. I do not work on my own guitars. I destroy guitars if I work on them, and I would not want to destroy this beautiful piece of art, playable art.
I noticed the bar, it's not a Floyd Rose, it's not a Wilkinson, it looks like some kind of proprietary tremolo system.
It is. Joe Knaggs, is his design, I do believe. Joe Knaggs, for those who don't know, went to high school with Paul Reed Smith, and he worked at the Paul Reed Smith factory for many, many years, and he ran the private stock program, so they made all the super high-end guitars and stuff like that. And this is one of Joe's proprietary designs, I'm pretty sure. And he always loved tellies, and that plate around the pickup on the telly, which adds a little, he feels like it adds a little sustain. I kind of think it does too. And there's a single coil that pops through. And what's different about the tremolo is that the tremolo is not actually screwed into the wood. It's screwed in. It's on a hinge with this. Plate. So these 5 screws are holding the tremolo on. And the pressure is on that, not on, say, like on a lot of tremolos, there's either a fulcrum on 2 poles or 6 screws. And I've had guitars where I've used the tremolo a lot, and those screws get worn down, and those holes get worn down a little bit. You have to have them filled in a little bit and stuff like that. But not always. It's just how aggressive you are. So Joe believes that adds a little sustain, and I'm kind of right there with him.
I would think it would. A lot of people replace the piece in the back for a thicker like plate to get more sustain.
Yeah, the
where
tone
the strings
block.
go through. Yeah, the tone block.
Yeah.
So it's probably the same idea, just in a different way. Which
Probably.
is really cool.
Probably. I know that
very stable.
I know that when it is. When I first went to, and I found Knaggs guitars by sheer luck. I go to Maryland every year and do a little workshop at Montgomery College and do some shows. And I was going to be there for a month, and I called a friend of mine, Dave Wiener, who's a PRS artist, and I said, "Oh, PRS is in Maryland. You know, can you see if I can just get a tour?" I like touring factories, guitar factories. I've been to Gibson, I've been to Taylor, I've been to a bunch of, you know, Ibanez for sure. I called Dave Wiener and I said, "Hey Dave, I'm going to be in Maryland. I would really love to just get a tour of the Paul Reed Smith factory." And he goes, "Oh, okay." So he wrote a letter, but for some reason they never got back in time. And then I was like, "Oh, I'm in Maryland. I want to do something cool." And I said, "Oh wait, Steve Stevens endorses Nags guitars." I knew nothing about Nags guitars, so I watched a couple of videos. Said, "Wow, that looks interesting," and I like the colors. I like their whole vibe. I really like to check it out. So I wrote Steve, and Steve wrote a really, really nice letter. And they said, "Yeah, come on down. If you're in Maryland, come on down, check out the guitars." And I got there, had a great time talking with Joe. And so he showed me all the guitars at the factory and let me play. I moved my necklace out of the way, so I didn't scratch any of these really expensive guitars.
Right.
And we had a really good time. And then afterwards, we just talked about it. And we talked about a guitar for me. And I was like, "He's a master builder, sure."
That's cool.
And so I have this, which is called a Severin.
Okay.
And in a few months, they're going to release this guitar as my model because it has my little logo in there.
That's fantastic.
And stuff like that. So then I have another Severin that's a semi-hollow. It's got an F-hole in it. Okay. And it's really cool. Different sound. It's same wood. It's an alder body with a maple top, but it's semi-hollow body. And then I have a what's called a Chenna. They're all the guitars at Nags are named for Native American rivers, which is kind of interesting because I have some awards and stuff for producing and working with Native American artists. And so it kind of goes well.
Ties in nicely.
Yeah, and that star is usually associated with New Mexico as well.
Okay.
Where I lived for a while.
Some nice details to know about.
Yeah,
it's not just there for a random reason.
No, everything has a purpose. Everything has a purpose.
Fantastic.
The other guitar I have is Chenna is a full hollow body.
Okay.
Which is really cool. It's actually a great guitar. It's normally I don't feel like I need to. I feel like when I get a guitar, I have to be able to play it, and not worry about damaging the guitar or something like that. And this guitar, I'm like,
battle scars.
Yeah, this guitar's been around the world, so it's got some dings. It's been lived.
Yeah.
It's seen a lot. But the Chenna, I always go, I'm gonna take it on the road. No, it's too nice. Yeah. I mean, it's a great guitar. It's strong. It's not delicate, but I don't want to take it on the road. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
I'm taking it a few times, and I use it in the studio a lot.
Great. So. Bolt on or neck through or?
Joe doesn't make any bolt on necks.
Look at that.
It's a.
That's awesome.
Set neck.
Yeah.
Look at that neck joint. I don't know if you can see that neck joint.
Yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, it's really cool. Adds to the sustain, I believe, and
absolutely.
They're all. Joe likes. I think from talking with him that he likes a certain era of vintage instruments, and what he builds are feel like modern vintage instruments, like these tuners.
Okay.
They're actually locking.
Oh wow, look at that.
But
they look vintage.
They look vintage. They work well. I played the other day at the show we did.
Okay.
And someone said. They saw me tune at the beginning of the night, but they didn't see me tune the rest of the night. It's like I rarely have to. I mean, if I put new strings, I have to stretch them out, but they lock.
Yeah.
And they work.
That's
so. And then the 22 frets. I think at the radius. Forgive me if I say this wrong. I believe radius is 8.5, 8.5. And I was used to really flat fingerboards.
Right. The Ibanez stuff is very.
Yeah. But I got used to it. When we talked about a guitar for me, he was like, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, I played all the guitars in the factory. I'm kind of comfortable with everything. I got used to that radius really quick.
Okay.
And he's a master builder, so whatever. I picked the color scheme, and we talked about my logo, and it was Joe's idea to put it across 3 frets.
Cool.
So this is almost stock, other than the pickup choice, and that logo in there, and then the color is it's aged Scotch, which is interesting because I don't drink, never drank, but it's aged Scotch. So you can get this guitar without it being my model. You can get a guitar with this color scheme and stuff like that without being my model. But that's what I've changed.
That's great.
When he said, "How do you want it done.
Very little.
Nah.
Just a few things,
Yeah.
and it's still perfect.
He knows how to make
That's
great guitars, so.
Tiny frets, jumbo frets, those look small, I think, from this angle.
They don't feel like I have some guitars with jumbo frets. They don't feel like jumbo frets, but I don't know what I don't even know the fret wire.
Okay.
Because the guitar works.
Right.
You know, in the past I've had guitars that have been custom made for me, and I was like, next time I want to change that. Next time I want to do that. And I've had some where I kind of dictated what I wanted.
Right.
And some of those worked, some of those don't work. I play guitar, I'm not a builder. I can say I like this, I don't like that. I'm not sure why I like certain things all the time, but I give it a shot. Again, at Joe's factory, I played all the guitars. I go, yeah, I like the Severn.
That's it.
So whatever you do, just make a Severn.
That's cool. Yeah.
It rings really nice.
Yeah, play a little.
Just playing one key, shouldn't I? Gain on.
I know you tour an awful lot. It's like you're never home.
I travel a bit.
And now that they have this wonderful AX8, which is a small package with a big punch, I mean, this has got everything. I remember going to see you at Kenny's Castaways, and even helping you. I think we drove you home once or twice. And
Maybe, thank you.
We had that refrigerator rack to fit in the car with your guitars and you and other people, and it was a project. And this fits in a carry-on.
Yeah, all I can say is we're in 2017. It's a wonderful, wonderful time to be a guitar player. It's an odd time to be a musician because we're having trouble trying to sell records. We're competing against so many other things for people's attentions. But as a guitar player, you have every tone imaginable and unimaginable at your beck and call. And it doesn't cost a fortune or take a truck to move.
Right.
I still have real amps. I have a great old Plexi. I have quite a few little Fender Pro Juniors tube amps. I love those amps. But I haven't taken them out of the house in a long time.
Yeah.
I started back in the late 80s, early 90s. Yeah, I used to have a 16 space shock mount, 350-pound rack. And then a side rack, which either 4-space shock mount or 10-space shock mount with power amps.
With two Harkey 4x12.
With 2 or
cabs.
9 412 cabinets. And yeah, I was crazy enough. I took those on the road. I also played with them in small clubs. But that's what I had to, great delays. It was great. It had great sounds. But I feel confident that I have the same sounds with the AX8 or the rack mount Axe effects, which I used for a while at first.
Right.
And I used to fly with that all the time, with that and a MIDI controller called the MFC. And when they came out with the AX8, it's not quite as powerful, but it's the same sounds.
Right.
And I can carry that on a plane. I can get on it. Airlines have kind of lost my bags a few times. One time it never came back. So there is a MFC MIDI controller floating around somewhere. In my checked luggage.
Right.
But I get on a plane with my guitar and at minimal my AX8, which has my amp tones, my wacky delays, all of this stuff. I plug my acoustic into it and my electric into it. It has all the stuff and looper built in. It has and the wah. Everything's programmed, and then I have it programmed a couple of ways that I can improvise if I need to go sit in at a jam or whatever. And then for fun, I sometimes bring a little side pedal board with a pedal, an overdrive pedal. And the overdrives in this are great, as you know.
Yeah.
But I have a little pedal right now it's called a chocolate driver. We have to find a new name for it.
Okay.
That I can turn on and off whenever I feel like doing that. Eventide makes a cool new pedal called the H9 that does like harmonies and reverbs and delays and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff that the AX8 does, but together it's a really powerful, and it's a small pedal.
Yeah.
Together it's a really powerful system.
That's a great combination.
AX8 has MIDI, so is the H9, and you can do what's called scenes. For some of you who are familiar with the AX8, you know what I mean by scenes. You can change what the Eventide does per scene, which is pretty awesome.
Really cool.
And I just got, I'm a fan of guitar. I love effects, and I spent crazy money on delays years ago. Yeah. I used to have a delay collection. So not that I had crazy money, I just was crazy and I spent a lot of money on delays. I just got this cool thing called an X Stomp by Hot Tone.
It looks really cool. It almost looks like a cell phone. It's so flat.
It's flat like a cell phone. But what's cool, it has no, you can say it has no real personality. It has an app that you can download one of, I don't know, maybe 100 effects into it.
Oh, really?
When you want.
So it's basically a blank slate that you put something into.
It's a blank slate, and what I don't particularly need it on this pedal, but what's interesting is that it has amp sims and cabinet sims, as well as delays and choruses and flanges and auto wahs and stuff like that. What's cool is if you had on your pedal board, say, as a flanger, and you go out and your tube amp dies, and you don't have the fractal, or you need to, let's say, the Tech 21 products that do amp sims and stuff, you can now, with your phone, quickly make that a cabinet sim. So and put it at the end of your amp.
Download it in there.
Then it takes it. You can't change it instantly. It just takes like 3. If it's not been in the pedal before, it takes maybe 3 minutes, I think, or something.
Okay, that's not bad.
And then now you can plug your pedal board. You basically have your pedal board go straight into a PA if you want, or if you need an effect for one set and a different effect for another set. It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's technology. I love technology.
I mean, really, honestly, for people who don't use this kind of stuff, your gig would be pretty much done unless somebody else there had an amp.
Yeah.
So that's very cool.
And today there's so many options. There's no reason to, like, if your amp dies, to not have sound.
A little B-rig.
Tech 21 makes those great, the Character Series pedals, which is a version of any amp. They have a Fender series, a Marshall Plexi series, all of them.
You were using the California?
I used the California, which was I used the Blonde.
That's right.
Yeah, the Blonde is the Fender series.
Right.
There's a Plexi series, which is, I don't know actually what it's called, the Brit series, which is the Plexi series, so all lid amps. But then you have stuff like the Kemper, which is a profiler. If you have an amp collection, it's great. You have Atomic, that makes a little red box that's really cool. And then, of course, for me, the pinnacle is the Fractal series. The Fractal modeling is just absolutely great.
It really is fantastic.
And the amount of effects and what you can do with the effects is stunning. Yeah. So that's the one for me. Find the right one for you. That's all.
Yeah, there's plenty of choices. There's plenty of great things on the market right now. It's a good time to be a guitar player, like you said.
Absolutely, absolutely great. I mean, we got great guitars, great tones, and we're playing really low volume, but we still have, this is
full game.
For me to get that tone, I have a 73 Plexi at home. I'd have to run a pedal into it, and I'd have to crank that amp. And my neighbors would just be like,
to each other right now.
And my hearing would
be ringing.
So, yeah.
Very
Are you liking your AX8?
I love it. I remember you turning me on to this stuff way back when it was the Ultra, I believe.
That was the first one I got.
It was the first one. Mm-hmm. And I think, if I remember correctly, you and Matt came out. Well, you were coming out to do a guitar clinic at the school where I teach.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And then Matt showed up with someone. I can't remember if it was it Cliff or was it someone else?
Actually, it was Tom King.
Oh, really? Okay. So yeah, so you guys came out, and that's when I first got introduced to everything. It just sounded fantastic. Yesterday and the day before when we did our gigs together, we were basically directing the PA, and there really was barely any bleed through those amps that were on stage.
Yeah, we had some
we had the Tech 21s. Yep.
Yeah, the power engines for
yes, the power engine
for
60s.
just some stage volume and stuff like that.
And they were just up enough for us to deal with it. But what mostly everybody was hearing, except for the people right in the front tables.
That front table.
Yeah, they got the Tech 21s.
Yeah.
The convenience of the AX8 is just really.
Yeah, I get
really
on a
great.
plane with this in a laptop briefcase.
Yeah.
It fits in there. I can have a little room at the bottom for other pedals if I want to take. I actually don't have to take any other pedals.
Right.
But I like pedals. I like different things and the possibilities and stuff like that.
So I guess the second half of what we're talking about here, influence and inspiration, which I think we kind of hit on it anyway, but what inspires you to keep going? Like,
I love music.
okay.
I love when I get emails and messages from people that say that they. I got one the other day that someone said they were going through a rough time, and listening to, I believe the song was Unforgotten, was helping them get through it.
That's fantastic.
And they didn't go into detail what was the rough time and stuff like that. I love I've gotten messages from many years ago, actual handwritten messages. Now they come in email form and Facebook messages. Where there's a guy that proposed to his girlfriend while he had played in Israel, while he played Political Rain on a boombox on the beach.
That's awesome.
On the sand, I guess. And I was like, oh, all right, that's interesting.
That's cool.
I like meeting people and sharing music and watching faces, and I like creating music. So I don't, I can't see doing anything else. I do different forms of music. So I produce singer-songwriters. I produce country music, R&B, gospel, rock, pop, adult contemporary. I don't know if I said Native American.
You did earlier, but
world
you can
music.
cover it again.
So I like working in the studio. I like working with new artists, older artists that have been doing it for a while, I should say. I love working with kids.
Yeah.
So all of that inspires me to keep going.
That's cool.
This is what I do. It's something I've been doing since I was 9 years old. So it's the one thing I've been doing longer than anything else.
Yeah, that's great. Saturday, you stopped in at Shamrock, and you worked with them, and it was really cool to see their reaction. Like when you started, I always have a tough time getting them moving, and when I tell them, it lasts for a while, and then they forget because they're concentrating so hard on getting the parts right, and they get nervous, and then they stiffen up again, and then you came over and you said, hey, are you having fun? And they're like, yeah, we're having fun. And you're like, well, it doesn't look like you're having fun.
It did not look like they were having fun.
And then once they got that little, I think you were making them nervous, the new guy in the room, so they were a little stiff. But once you got on bass and you started grooving with them, they started bopping their heads and kind of moving, and that was fun to watch, because when I do it, I'm giving the class, so I don't get to really, like I see it, but as a teacher, it's a different thing. So now I'm just sitting back watching this happen, and it was a very different view for me. Especially the drummer, he started like, you're like, you're moving all your, you got the loudest instrument in the room, like,
You're hitting things.
Yeah.
And people are not stopping you from hitting. They're like, yeah, hit him.
So that was fun.
I actually wanted to be a drummer, and my mom threw my drum set out the window.
I remember that story,
So-
and that's a great story.
Yeah. So if you're young and you have a drum kit, and your parents say, hey, stop, we're watching TV, don't test them.
Yeah.
They may throw your kid out the window.
And his mom really did. What floor was that?
Third floor in
Third
Brooklyn.
floor.
Yeah.
So it broke when it hit. It was pretty done.
It was done. It was done. It was totally done.
Well, that's kind of cool for all of us because now you play guitar. And
yeah, I love playing guitar. There was a time when I was like, I really want to play drums, stuff like that, but I love playing guitar.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Why don't you play a little bit for us? Maybe what we'll do is if you want to play to a track,
Okay.
that's fine. And we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate you doing this. It's fun talking about all of this stuff with fellow musicians who love the instrument and gear. You know, we can nerd out for a little while and talk about stuff.
I got a question for you.
Yes, sure.
Teach me one, like 2 chords and how to solo over them.
Oh,
I'm
boy.
self-taught, by the way, and so what I've done, and I say self-taught, but it's really community-taught, because I used to hang out with 2 groups of guitar players, 2 groups of like 10 guitar players, and I was the funk guy, and we had the guy that did Yngwie stuff, and the jazz guy, and the Eddie Van Halen guy. In fact, my friend John Levin, he could figure out all the George Lynch stuff and Eddie Van Halen. He's in Dokken. He's been in Dokken for a while now.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
and
cool.
We had Jeff Berkowitz, who was the jazz guy, and Jeff was in a heavy, actually, I can't even picture it, but he was in a big heavy metal band for a while. We had blues guys and stuff like that, but we sit around and we play.
Right.
And some people are like, what's that? Show me that. And what's great, because it's out of context, and I firmly believe that if you only listen to the kind of music that you play, you won't grow, you won't expand. So if you listen to death metal, if you play death metal and you only listen to death metal, you have a hard time expanding. You'll be waiting for someone to bring something in. But if you listen to death metal and you play, if you play death metal and you listen to country, guess what? John Five is a ridiculous country player, and he plays some dark music. But that dude can rip on everything, and he pushes the limits of the style of music he's playing because he knows other stuff. So if you listen to funk, if you play funk and you listen to rock, you're going to bring something different to it, vice versa. So when we were kids, it'd be like, I'd show somebody a cool rhythm stuff, and they're not going to go play Nile Rodgers funk stuff. They're going to put that in, whatever they're doing. If they're playing an AC/DC style rock, it weaves into that.
It could work, yeah.
Which is a great thing.
2 chords. Well, let's start off with 1 chord.
Okay.
I like a lot of dominant 7th stuff. A dominant 7.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people refer to it as just A7.
Okay.
So don't confuse that with major 7, because it's a very different chord. Let me just clean it up a pinch here. And major 7th sounds like this.
Mm-hmm.
And dominant 7th sounds like this. It has a flat 7 opposed to the natural 7.
I didn't know that was a dominant 7. Okay.
So there's our dominant 7, and we're just going to play a little pentatonic blues. Now, if you want to spice that up a pinch and make it sound more Jeff Beck-like, you can use the 5th mode of major scales. If anybody's into modes,
starting to lose me now. But all right, go ahead.
But basically, if you know a major scale, which is just the straight up regular old do re mi, right? The easiest thing to do to that scale to make this work really cool over that 7th chord is to lower the 7th. That guy right there, pull it back 1. So now your major scale changes from this to this. And that is in your chord. Bringing that up an octave. We got. There it is. And now just take it back a full octave, go all whole steps. And on the 6th string as well. Maybe instead of another chord with another scale, I like to branch out these guys. Make like a little power chord shape. And then drop your 2nd finger on the 8th fret next string, and then the pinky. That's another one that I like. And then go to the 10th fret. This one's cool, so 2nd finger's on 11, then your pinky's on 12, 1, and then,
I really like these versions.
They cut nicely.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't want to do this guy, which is the bar chord, just take the top part right here.
Yeah, I do this one.
Yeah,
That
that's
comes from
yep.
the rock
Yeah.
It worked great right into the minor pentatonic.
So you're here.
Or any variation of that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Thanks for coming. I really appreciate you
Thank
doing
you very
this.
much
It's
for-
always great hanging with you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me do
You're
this.
welcome. Yeah.